At 6 p.m., I'm going to call to order the virtual monthly village board meeting for the Village of Sister Bay on Tuesday, August 16th, 2022. Roll call. Zashki here.
Baker here.
Bell here.
Birdo here.
Cox here.
Bronco here.
Lions here.
And agenda item number 3, for those of you who would like to join in, we will stand up and on the count of 3 recite the Pledge of Allegiance. 1, 2, 3. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Heidi, for the image. I motion that we approve the agenda with one correction as to be noted now by our administrator.
Yes, so in regard to item 8D, when we put together the agenda, Destination Door County had sent us a form to fill out verifying what our allocation amount was going to the business association. They sent us the wrong form. We were pretty sure it was the wrong form, but we knew we had to get this in here. So we took the MOU they sent and made a staff report for it. And then later they verified, yeah, that was the wrong form. So just ignore the MOU, ignore the staff memo, and pay attention to the allocation form that's in the packet. And I'll just explain more about it when we get there. So the agenda is, it would just be, instead of 8D saying DDC strategic community partnership MOU, it would be strategic allocation of funds.
Hey,
We have a second.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. I will motion that we approve the meeting minutes as published for the July 19th, 2022 Village Board meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Do we have any comments or concerns from the public on a non-agenda item this evening? Hearing none. Heidi, do we have a summary of correspondence to note?
So there was no correspondence included in the packet for you, but I did send out an email yesterday with 2 letters of support in regards to the sale of village lots, which is on the agenda for tonight. Did everyone receive that email?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that was it.
I believe we had one other item of correspondence that came to us this week. Did we not, Julie?
Rob, I can help you with that. We did, but it was regarding the upcoming hearing on the food court. So I think it was really intended for the Plan Commission. So it's going to go in the Plan Commission packet. And then when that item does go to the board, we'll send it back to the board.
Okay. I guess my only comment on that would be it was addressed to all of the individual board trustees. I'm not inferring that it's not applicable at the next Plan Commission meeting, but at some point it should come back in a packet to the for the board meeting, since it was addressed to all of us.
Yeah, I agree. When we send, if that makes it out of the Plan Commission, that'll be part of the packet that you get, because we'll include all the correspondence that went with that particular item.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item number 7. Report from our County Supervisor, Dave Leno. Dave is with us this evening. Dave, it's all yours.
Good evening, everyone.
Hey, Dave.
Dave.
I have a couple of reports. The first one is from the Tuesday, July 26th County Board meeting. A couple of things occurred there. The village is in the same mode of going through budgeting at this point in time. So at the 26th of July meeting, the county board did approve their capital improvement plan for 2023 through 2027. And it's actually went down a couple of percentage points from the previous year, which is good. We also had a transfer of non-budgeted funds to redo and modernize the elevators in the county building that's located in Sturgeon Bay. And there was also an approval of a design development for a Door County facility, parks and facilities maintenance garage, which is being expanded and upgraded, which is located at the Door County Fairgrounds Park. Then today, we also had a joint administrative and financial committee meeting. And again, that's all part of the budgeting process. So what we went through today was any new positionings or positions that were requested from various departments and any reclassification of current positions. And that was a rather lengthy meeting. We started at 9 o'clock this morning. We actually finished about 1:30 this afternoon. So there was a lot of discussion that went through that. And so this was a working session. We made some changes to what departments and personnel were requesting. So that was sent back through administration. It will come back probably next month for approval at the next county board meeting. But of note, one of the items on there that generated a lot of discussion was, and this affects everyone in Door County, basically. You may or may not be aware of this, but in the past, Paratran ambulance service provided transport from Door County Memorial Hospital to other hospitals or other medical institutions in Green Bay, for instance. So if a patient came to Sturgeon Bay and it was determined that they needed to be transferred to a different facility, Paratran did the majority of those servicing. They since went out of business, and so the hospital has had to take it upon themselves to find alternative means of transporting those patients. So they have contacted, there's a number of private providers throughout the Fox Valley. But let me give you a for instance of what happens. There was a patient that had to wait about 8 or 9 hours, and that was for an ambulance to come from Wausau to come to Sturgeon Bay to pick that patient up, to take them down to Green Bay, to get them down to the Green Bay Hospital. And those are considered non-medical emergency transports, but they still need to be made based on a hospital or doctor's recommendation. The county has never been involved in patient transport before, other than critical care instances. So if it required a high level of EMT service, for instance, while they were being transported, the county did transport those types of medical cases. And that comprised probably 15, maybe 20% of all the transports that were being made from the county or from the hospital in Sturgeon Bay. What's happened is the transport requirements are exceeding what those private companies can provide. A lot of those private companies are also being overwhelmed in their own areas and can oftentimes not provide a transport service. A recent example was just, I guess, over the weekend, the hospital started calling about 11 o'clock at night for somebody to be transported to the facility. It couldn't take place until about 2 o'clock the next afternoon, when enough people and personnel were available on the EMT side or the emergency services side to provide that transport. So it's become an ongoing issue. The hospital subsequently is talking to the county about the county EMS services taking over that transport service. Again, that's not something we've typically done in the past, but there is definitely a need for it. So we're evaluating, looking to do that. And that was probably the bulk of the conversation today that drove the meeting as long as it was trying to figure out and determine what the best way to do that is, what it would cost. The hospital is willing to put up the cost for the service, but it's how do you integrate that into EMS? Is it a separate division? Do you just hire 5 or 6 additional paramedics and additional equipment and use them as ambulance services to bolster your current ambulance service? And as the transport comes up, then you pull one of those rigs out to do that transport? Or, what are the other alternatives? I think everybody, including the hospital, agrees that if a private service was available to do it, or if a private service came along at some point in time, that you might want to, go back that direction. But at this point in time, there is little or no other alternatives. So we'll continue to pursue that particular address or that particular issue over the next couple of months. But the hospital definitely is in a need for some type of transport of just everyday medical patients. People say, well, how many are there? I guess it depends on how you look at it. It's between 90 and 100 per year.
Wow.
But when a service is available, more transports are made than when a service is not available, if that makes sense. Because doctors know it's not available, so they try and make other alternatives, or a patient knowing that may just go direct to Green Bay to get their medical care rather than go through Sturgeon Bay to start with. So it's quite a issue to try and work through. And one of the things that came up was several people asked, well, isn't this just part of emergency services? And really it's not. An EMT is out there, paramedic is out there to try and, stabilize the patient, determine where they have to go to the hospital, treatment on site, how they have to be transported there and why. And it's all under doctor's orders. So that's what their main purpose is to provide that emergency service, that emergency medical care. And once it gets to the hospital, they close their doors and they move on to the next patient. So this is taking a look at the other side of the ledger. And now that the patient's been transported to the hospital, additional transport is needed. That's quote non-emergency usually. And so how do we address that? So that's what the topic is. The other thing that was discussed today was, if you recall, back during early summer, early spring, the county went to a 4.5-day work week where the building is closed in the afternoons. We're currently going through and meeting with employees and meeting with department heads to determine how that has worked out so far this summer. And if that's something that we're looking to continue, or if it's going to be just a seasonal type of effort. And we hope to get that information back probably next week. And that's my update. If you have any questions, I'm certainly free and available to answer. Denise, yes.
So this has nothing to do with the county, but I don't think you're going to be hanging around for the entire meeting till we get to committee reports. So can I ask you a Marina question?
Sure.
Okay. So when I was looking through the bills and the numbers or the bills that we had paid to Going Garbage over the last couple of months, and it said Marina Garbage, but it didn't say Marina Recycling. Is your garbage and recycling all in one lump bill, or does the Marina not recycle down there? So there's not a separate bill?
Okay, I don't see the individual bills, so I can't tell you how they bill, but we do recycling. We have 6 recycle bins down there that are picked up separately from the trash.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Dave? Dave, thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too, Dave. Thanks.
All right.
Agenda item 8A, resolution number 491, Startup Urban Forestry Grant Application. Detailed on pages 10 through 18 of our packet. This comes with a recommendation to approve from the Parks Committee and Green Tier. As noted in the packet, this is for a DNR grant to begin a tree maintenance program in the village. Any discussion or questions for staff?
So this is funded at 50%, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Hearing no other questions, I will motion that we approve resolution 491 for the startup of the urban forestry grant application.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 8B, conditional use permit for the Groovy Garage addition at 2380 South Bay Shore Drive, detailed on pages 19 through 25 of our packet this evening. Approval was recommended to the board by the Plan Commission. Any discussion?
Nothing.
I will motion that we approve the conditional use permit for the said garage addition at 2380 South Bay Shore Drive.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Item 8C, sale of village property, 2 lots on Ava Hope Court and 8 lots on Ava Hope Trail, as noted on pages 26 and 28 in our packet. This was recommended for approval by the Plan Commission with conditions as noted on page 27 at a discounted price per lot. It is my understanding Since then, our administrator, as noted in the report, has been approached by a potential buyer of one lot at full price, which should be part of our discussion this evening, it would appear. Julie?
Yes, so the Plan Commission, you have the map on page 26 of what the Plan Commission reviewed. And basically the housing partner, Door County Housing Partnership approached us and said they would like to purchase 10 lots on Ava Hope Court and Ava Hope Trail. And their purchase price they were offering was $10,000 a lot. I think I had to type it in here where it said acre, but it's 10,000 a lot.
Okay.
And they would use it for low and moderate income housing. They're able to offer subsidies, which keeps the price low. And then as explained in my staff memo, you can see that's also how they're able to keep it affordable over the years. So you can't just sell it and make a profit. You know, they have a lot of stipulations, a lot of restrictions in place to make sure those lots do remain dedicated to low to moderate income housing. Since that time that the Plan Commission made that recommendation, last week we did get a request for one of the lots for workforce housing, and they're willing to pay $54,000 a lot, which is what we have into it. The village's price per lot is $54,000 when you look at, you know, all of our expenses. So he was looking at purchasing the lot right next door to the lot we sold Paula Anschutz. So Paula Anschutz, if you're looking at the map, she got 2387. It's for workforce housing. She hasn't done that yet, but supposedly in the works. This person would like to buy 2391 and use it for the same purpose. Move a house out there, use it for workforce housing. So, you know, it kind of complicates things because the Plan Commission recommended the full 10. His request for lot 2391 won't go to the Plan Commission until next week. So I don't know if the board wants to say, yeah, let's go ahead and consider the 9 and discuss that 10th lot later, or maybe you just say, too bad we're doing all 10 now, or how you want to handle that. But we do have representatives from the partnership here to add more details about the program if you're interested in that. Otherwise, it is explained in the packet. And then we do have people here speaking in support. And as Heidi said, we have received 2 letters as well that would support the proposal. So that is what I have for you.
Okay, and we have Mariah with us. I defer it first for comments to our plan chair, Denise, regarding Julie's question.
Well, with the addition of this new person wanting to buy 2391, I believe we know who the housing partnership is. We know what their model is. But I think it would be, and if we just want to consider the 9 instead of the 10 in tonight's discussion, I would understand that. But for us to sell that lot to an unknown entity without having any deed restrictions on it yet, I think that would be wrong.
I agree with you. I was more specifically, you know, in my mind, questioning the 9 for consideration tonight, and then let's see how the other lot moves forward or doesn't move forward at Plan Commission. Chad?
I think you guys disagreed, but my question is with the deed restriction, if we sell, are they in place, right? This is going to be done at the closing, correct? And there's nothing to say that we couldn't impose similar deed restrictions to this other lot. When it comes to lots 2397 and probably 2391, I think until Paula moves her building, I would think we should not sell those 2 because I don't want to be in the same position we're in right now and we were in with Tim's Dirt. I don't feel comfortable selling a lot that has something else on it that's still there, even if we think it's gonna move, because it isn't moved yet, and we've already made that mistake. I'm all for this, right? But I think we should hold off on those couple lots until they're resolved, and we can always sell those at a later date. Because I don't. wanna make
I don't think we're talking about approving the sale of the 2391 at the price purportedly offered. I think we're talking about, would we be comfortable tonight dealing with the 9 lots?
I just said no, because one of those lots has a house on it right now that is owned by somebody else. That's what I just said.
Okay.
I don't feel comfortable selling either of those 2 lots because there's a house on one and it might be partially on the other. I don't know. And it's probably going to be moved through the other. We've made a mistake before.
Yep.
Selling a lot with dirt on it. I don't want to sell a lot with a house on it till that house is gone. And I know they probably won't build on that lot right away and whatever. I just know we screwed up already. Let's not screw up again. We can sell it once that house is moved. I don't have any problem with that. I just can't in good conscience.
I agree with everything you're saying, but so the question is then, if we agree we don't want to sell that 2391, but at some point in the future would want to, and apparently there's somebody coming forward with Julie inquiring about it, then can we not move forward tonight with 9 lots, not including 2391, and proceed?
2397, I'm pretty sure has Paula's building on it, doesn't it, Julie?
Yeah. Yeah, let me comment on this. So Paula had, she got the variant, she got the approval to put her house on 2387, and she was told she needed a variance. She never applied for that variance. I wrote her in, I think it was June, and I wrote her again this week saying, look, you need to get that variance or we're going to have to deny this and you're going to have to start over, because you can't approve it without a variance. You can't proceed without the variance. She also put the buildings on our property, my understanding, without permission. We have nothing in a file. No one ever gave her permission to put the building and the decks kind of strewn across the 2 lots. So I said, these are also a violation. You have to get them off. I did let her know, because I didn't want to end up in the same situation we were with Tim. I did let her know. I said, and by the way, somebody has approached us about these lots. We are going to consider selling them. You need to get your house off these lots before they're sold. So she has been alerted of the matter. If we approve it, she'll get a follow-up letter. I don't really think it's fair to hold up the partnership because Paula has a violation and hasn't dragged her feet. I don't think that's fair to the partnership at all.
I'm not trying to hold the partnership up. We can
Yeah.
sell 8 lots, right? I don't want to hold this partnership up. I just don't want to make a same mistake that we've already made. When somebody else's property is on a lot we're going to sell. It's just hard for me to screw up again. That's all.
Yeah.
I don't want to stop the partnership. I think it's great.
Denise and then Scott.
Julie, the village board gave her permission to put the building there.
Okay. Do you know how long, Denise, that gave it to her?
I do not recollect that we gave her, unfortunately, any time frame.
Okay.
My only question just was, where do we stand with Tim and the dirt? It was supposed to be moved by June 30th.
It's a legal issue between Tim and Paula.
Okay, thank you.
Nate does have his hand raised.
Nate?
So when this was brought to plan, there was no talk of money on here, and I'm all for doing this project. I do think that the village is looking at contributing effectively $440,000 to these 10 units. I don't think we should do 10 units. I think that we should do 4 or 6 units at that lower cost, or if they want to get all of them, we should get something closer to the money that we put into this. I think that this is a good step, and there's no one magic bullet to this. However, I'm going to echo what I said at Plan Commission, that I don't believe that this sort of housing is going to make a huge impact. That's not saying we shouldn't do something. Doing something is better than nothing. But for putting $440,000 to this, I think that's more than the village should contribute to that, not to this effort, but this particular effort. I think that we could do something more effective out near the wastewater treatment plant.
Chad?
And Mariah, could you speak a little bit on the income and the restrictions and how you're gonna, try to keep this for Door County people or people that are gonna be living up here, working up here, hopefully retiring into their home, and then how do you have control over that with deed
Sure.
restrictions?
Can everybody hear me okay? I'm doing this on my phone.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for having us here tonight. So the model that the Door County Housing Partnership follows is called the Community Land Trust model. In other areas of the country, we're calling it a housing trust because the conservation group would get confusing up here. But the way it works is we retain ownership of the land, and then the home is sold at a very affordable discounted price to the buyer, and it's their home. They are a homeowner in every sense of the word, but they're leasing the land from us. And that's because that lets us control for every buyer thereafter the income levels and whether or not it's going to be a year-round residence and somebody hopefully that's going to have significant roots in the community.
So how do you control that part of it? The income level?
So we're following a national model of a ground lease. So they sign basically a 40-page document when they're buying the home about leasing the land and what powers we have as a housing partnership and what authority they have with regard to what they can do with the house. And when they're buying the house, they enter into that lease with us for the land. And it outlines like how much equity they can get in the home. So for example, right now we have a home in Sturgeon Bay that a private builder built for us. And they put about $230,000 into it. We're going to sell those homes for $130,000. So we're going to pay the developer the difference. But with those folks getting that huge discount on the front end, they're limited to the equity that they can get. So when our homes are sold, people can get 1% equity per year
Right,
from their
I
purchase
get
price
that
plus
part.
whatever they've paid their mortgage.
I get that part. How are we going to limit it not to be
Okay.
just somebody that wants to retire up here? What else? What are the limit? How are you controlling?
It's written into the ground lease. It's got to be their primary residence and year-round residence.
Okay. They could be a retired couple.
They could be, but it would be difficult for them to, we have like a tie-breaking system. So if we get more than one applicant for a home that qualifies, we give extra points if you already live here, if you already have a job here, if you've already got kids in the school
Okay.
system, if you've
That's
lost
the
a
stuff I
previous
wanna know.
tie-break. Yeah, sorry, I got sidetracked with my.
No, thank you.
My question for the trustees is how would we feel about committing to 6 lots tonight for the housing trust, none of which are the 2 lots noted by Chad? Any commentary on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds good, Rob. I know this housing trust is going to do great things and they're going to continue to. There's no reason we can't still hold other lots for future because if, we want to see things get moving there, and I know they're going to get moving, but sometimes it doesn't happen, right? I mean, I think that's a reasonable start, but I also, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would be good with that.
Right. So Mariah, would that be a problem for your organization if we committed to 6 lots this evening?
I mean, I don't know that I'd call it a problem. I guess it's taken, and Christina Studebaker's online from United Way, because it's taken months and months and months to to figure out with the state how we can use this grant that's a pass-through grant from United Way to us. So we'll have to go back and see if buying just 6 of them and then using the remainder of the money, I guess we'll just have to figure out what we would do with that money. So obviously we'd prefer 10. I guess we would take 6 if that was all that was offered to us. Shoot, I had another thought, but I mean, I guess, well, I'll leave it at that.
Mariah, could you just pay more for the lots then? I mean, it's an obvious question.
So here's the,
Well,
I mean,
Mariah, can I speak to a minute about the timing of the grant?
Sure, yeah, that's Christina.
So the grant, hi everyone, I'm Christina Studebaker, Community Impact Coordinator with United Way. And I took one of the lead roles in writing the Workforce Innovation Grant that we were awarded, and we've got funds for the housing partnership in there. The timing of the grant is 3 years. So all of our money has to be spent by June of 25. We just finished finalizing the budget workout for the folks with DWD, and our board president signed it today. It's final, it's good to go. We do have permission to use the 100,000 toward a purchase of 10 lots. So if we did 6 tonight, we could hold back 40,000. Your discussions could take place over the next few plan commission meetings and village board meetings. But then if we have the opportunity, if those came back, that we were first in the queue to be able to get them, if these other things that you're considering fell through, any of them that were still in the queue and available that we could use the remaining funds. We'd like to get as many lots, of course, as possible at a reasonable price that allows us to develop as many as possible and as affordable housing. So that would be my thing, just for consideration.
Nate?
So when you applied for this grant, you actually had $100,000 for 10 lots. Did you have these particular lots in mind when you applied?
No, we had a different proposal. Mariah, you can speak to that, or I can speak to that.
Yeah, so the original proposal was basically the subsidy that the housing partnership has to put in for every house, and that doesn't include the land, is $100,000. So what we put in the grant for United Way was $100,000 because it's a childcare grant, and we thought, well, we could build one house near one of the childcare centers, and that would cover the subsidy for that house, and then we would hopefully get a childcare worker in there, and thereafter, anytime it's sold, really go after that market for purchasing that home. And then the state decided that they did not want to do that. They wanted as many lots as possible. And then that's where we kind of came up with the idea, because I knew that there were these 10 lots there, and 100 divided by 10 rounds out very nicely to 10,000.
So the presumption
no, we
you
were
able to get lots less than market value when you wrote the grant?
Pardon me?
The presumption was you were going to get the lots at less than market value when you wrote the grant.
No, we weren't. The grant didn't even mention Sister Bay. We weren't talking about Sister Bay necessarily. We were going to do a house somewhere. And then they said, no, they didn't want to do a house. They wanted many houses with the opportunity for childcare workers to purchase those houses each time they came up. We were definitely not being presumptuous.
And that was in line with the housing is one component of this grant. This grant, is providing funding for the construction of a new childcare facility in Sturgeon Bay. It's providing money to support the remodel of Northern Door Children's Center to allow 4K. It's providing money for training and succession planning of the childcare centers. And we know that a significant hurdle to childcare providers in the county is housing. And so we were looking for ways to help address that hurdle also. So these were other added components, and they liked our whole package. And then after we got the grant, discussions continued, and that's how these things developed since then.
So Christina, my question for you is on your point about wanting or envisioning the $100,000 to be solely for the purchase of lots. I recall during the Plan Commission discussion that the question came up, to my recollection, that we asked the gentleman who was with Mariah, what about construction costs? What about increasing construction costs, particularly because we could be talking about a timeline of 2 to 3 years of construction? And to my recollection, he mentioned, well, there would be other fundraising going on or other fundraising opportunities. So my question for you is, if we were to say this evening, we'll commit to 6 lots, and if we were to agree to the $10,000 per lot cost, could that $40,000 difference from the 100 you mentioned, could you earmark that 40,000 essentially as a bogey towards any cost overruns or construction cost increases, so that you knew in essence you were only getting 6 lots at the price, but you were having some money tangible that, quite frankly, most likely will be encountered at some point in 2 or 3 years, some rising construction costs.
I think what would happen, I'm still learning how these grant dollars are being approved by Department of Workforce Development, but from what I've learned so far, I think we would go back to, we would show the expenditure of 60,000 for the purchase of these 6 lots, and then we would go back to the Department of Workforce Development and the Department of Administration, and we would ask for reallocation of those remaining 40,000 for another use. And they could approve that, or they could say, no, that's where the funds have to be used, and we could potentially lose $40,000 because if there's no other lots to be purchased. Or we could, what I was saying earlier is that if you go back and consider these remaining lots, I consider them sort of in limbo. It sounds like you don't have a final decision on these other lots. And if those plans didn't go through it for the sale of 54,000 or whatever's going on with Paula, and those lots were still up for consideration, could we come back in 3 months, 4 months, still within our 3-year grant window, and purchase those lots with the remaining funds at $10,000 a lot, because those other plans would have fallen through and we'd still be in a window where we could use our grant funds for that purpose? That's what I was asking.
I think we would be open to considering it, but to make any kind of contractual.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not
agreement
asking
to
you
that
to
effect,
promise.
I
I'm
would-
just saying, yeah, that we could hope, rather than expend those funds for construction, which may not be permissible, we might hold on to them and see if there was yet a way to still purchase lots
Yeah,
with that
I mean,
money.
we're receptive and interested in, very much so, in participating with you in this. So, we'd certainly look with an open mind in the future if there were any lots left open in that scenario with you, I'm sure. Chad?
So, and I'm asking a lot of these questions really because I want to understand this more. I'm on your side with all this stuff, and we have a lot more land in Sister Bay that we hope to do some great things with. But when you were hoping to put a childcare worker in one, would that just be another point they would get in the application? How are you going to have, because I feel like existing workforce residents of Sister Bay should be weighted more to get these homes than somebody else, and somebody working already at Northern Door that's a young man or woman or a young in a family, they should have priority versus even somebody coming from outside, right? So,
Yeah, so
that's the part I want to try to understand, because
that's a really good question. When we were writing the grant and looking at the package of things that we were presenting for consideration, childcare was the thing that was holding it all together. And so we proposed that we were, looking to reduce that hurdle for the childcare workforce. And then after we got the grant, I have to tell you, the granting process for this has been sort of like unlike any other that I've known. And you guys may understand that with other ARPA funds, where they were moving a lot of money quickly. And then after they awarded the money, things kept being discussed and learned. And we were discussing with them, like, what if we didn't have any early childhood educator applying for one of these homes? We wouldn't want a home to sit empty. Well, even though that was our proposal and we made it a tight package as best we could, the purpose of this workforce innovation grant funding is workforce support. And so they are okay with us opening up that housing to other essential workers, other things. And that's really, we don't control that. Those funds, these would go to the housing partnership, and that's what Mariah's group has their processes in place.
Mary?
Yeah, so if I'm understanding, you're opening it to just workforce housing, or specifically for the childcare center, like employees?
I can address that. So it's not legal for us to discriminate based on where somebody does or doesn't work in the state of Wisconsin. I mean, there's all sorts of things that it's not legal to do. So We have on our list, and even before this grant had on our list, the childcare centers, the local school districts as places that we would always reach out to anytime that one of our homes was ready to be sold. So that's, and the state seemed satisfied with that we would be reaching out to those folks, but we can't discriminate on source of income.
Right.
I think, oh, go ahead.
What about in-state or in-county income?
We
None of that?
can in-state or in-county. I
Like
don't
in
think you
county,
can,
like.
yeah, I don't think you can discriminate based on how somebody's making their living. But like I said, when we've got more than one household that qualifies, then we do have those tiebreakers. Like, do you live here already? Do you have kids in the school system? Do you have a job here? And so those families will rise to the top. But we can't specifically say it's got to be a childcare worker. And I want to say, so the home that we have for sale right now in Sturgeon Bay that private developers built for us, we ran a press release just about exactly 2 weeks ago saying that this home is for sale and giving people the link to go find out if they were income qualified and to submit a pre-application. We've had 25 households inquire and we've had 14 pre-applications, and 5 of them live in Northern Door and would much rather have a home in Northern Door. And I think that would be my only comment about, I guess, as far as getting 6 versus 8 or 9 or 10. I fully appreciate and understand how much money the village has put into this property. I was on the DCEC Attainable Housing Committee when Keith Garrett first started coming and talking about developing this whole area. And I understand that it sounds like a lot of money to, I guess, in some people's minds, lose if we're only going to pay $10,000 per lot. But I think the way to think about it is that it's not, $44,000 per lot. You're investing in the development and use of that property for the life of that property. It will always be an affordable workforce home. And to me, a $44,000 investment per lot for each of 10 lots. And I know you've got other things on the side so that 10 isn't necessarily in the mix right now. But that to me does not seem unreasonable at all. If you think about 10, 20, 30, how many families may live there in decades and centuries to come, that seems like a good investment, I think, on the part of the village to have those be year-round resident, primarily workforce housing.
So Mariah, if we were to consider 6 of the lots, excluding, I believe it was 2391 and 2397 were the ones that Chad referenced. If we were to consider 6 lots, none of them, those 2 would, of the remaining lots, would you have 6 that you would prefer?
I don't have a map up right now. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's up to you. I don't know if you want to have it be the 6 that are the most westerly, so that, oh, thanks.
We've got a map. We've got a map. Up now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want it to be the 6 that are most westerly or yeah, I guess it really, unless there's something that you guys know that we don't about how difficult it would be to develop some of them versus others.
Denise, I think you had your hand up.
Talking about the $44,000 investment that the village would be making per lot. A lot of people weren't on the board when we bought the Helms property and the Johnson property, and spent over $10+ million just on the property, not including the upgrades that we did. And we convinced the public that it was a good thing, and they were all in favor of that huge investment because it was forever. And if you take 10 million and you divide it by forever, it's pretty minuscule. And so I kind of look at it the same way, that 440,000 is minuscule for the return that we will get on it. I am happy if we have agreement for the 6 lots. I would prefer to have the 6 westerly lots and not the corner lots, which are, those 2 corner lots are a little bit larger than the other ones. So that's what I would be in favor of if there's general consensus on only 6 tonight.
Chad?
Mariah, when those 14, were they pre-qualified or how far in the process were they?
So what we have is we have a really simple pre-application form just to be able to get a sense of whether people income qualify for the program or not before we have them fill out the voluminous paperwork that we need for a full application. So one of the 14, I think, may not income qualify, but all of the rest appeared to income qualify. So literally tomorrow, I'm putting in the mail the full applications to all those folks, asking them to go ahead and fill out the full application if they're interested. And I've also been telling everybody, as has Jim, because we're the ones that have been fielding Jim Honig, our president, the phone calls. I've been telling people that even if you're interested in a lot in Northern Door, you should go ahead and fill out, a house in Northern Door, you should go ahead and fill out a pre-application and application with us, because it's very clear we're going to end up with a wait list. And so that probably anytime we have a house that comes into our realm, whether it's in Sturgeon Bay or Sister Bay, or if we're lucky enough to get land elsewhere, that we're going to be going to that wait list and ticking through that to find our buyers, because the response has been astounding and humbling and frankly really depressing the last 2 weeks to our press release.
And based on that information and based on Denise's comments, I think we should do the 8 westerly ones, hold on the 2 that are obstructed right around with other property. It'll give them time to see where they get, and hopefully they're coming back to us, because in a matter of months, they maybe have 4 of them sold already. And then we're talking about selling them other lots.
Denise said
I
the
would be all
6
for 8.
westerly lots.
The 8 westerly lots.
No, Denise said the 6 westerly lots.
That's what she said. But I'm echoing her sentiment on the investment part, saying I would be all for 8.
I'm
I guess
all for 8.
So I don't have an issue with the investment portion of it. I'm just questioning the bang for the buck the village is going to get, especially with a far better potential out at the property near the wastewater treatment plant. That's, I mean, like, we should take the what we've got right now, but I do think that I would love to see that money that we get for those other lots go back and get earmarked to do the same thing. I'm not saying the village should take this and pay off the debt. Let's take this and use this for something that's more effective than single family housing on R1 lots.
Don and then Denise.
Yeah, I actually think, I think 8 is more reasonable and probably in the spirit of what we've been talking about and what the village has been talking about for quite a while, and that's to try and find homes for exactly what this purpose is. I think it's short-term thinking to try and make a little bit more money on a per lot basis when we have this situation and issue in front of us. We have an opportunity now to do, I think, do something we feel good about. I think the 8, I understand the 2 that can't maybe be sold right now because of other issues discussed with Paula's property being on one, but I think 8 to me is something the village should feel good about. And if we made a couple dollars more on selling 6 right, they're doing 6 right now and making a little bit more money on 2 more, it's really not, it's quite frankly not that much money. This is an investment for the future of this village, so I think 8 is the way to go.
Denise, you
I
had
would
your
like
hand up and then
Tasha to clarify something that Nate said, and that is, I thought when we sold the lot to Paula, we had a resolution or something that it has to go towards the debt.
There is no outstanding resolution. That was the board's wish at the time,
Okay.
that any lots that were sold, that the money went towards the debt. What I will say is it gets a little challenging accounting wise, although I'm sure I'll figure out a way to make it happen, maybe, because this isn't a TIF. So the funds that are sold are going to go back into the TIF, and then to get them to use them out on the Wiltsey property, which was not in the TIF and cannot be in a TIF, I have to think about a little more.
Chad?
Nate, I do appreciate your comments on this, but I think the reason that we are here with these lots yet is because we've all agreed, or at least almost all of us have over the last handful of years, we've been dragging our feet for something like this to come our way. We could have sold these lots a long time ago and made more money, and we all knew we didn't just want to do that. And I do agree that anything we can get going on the Wiltsey property is great, but we have this now. Wiltsey property is going to take a lot of infrastructure. That's going to take bonding. It's going to be a big investment. I want to keep moving with this, and this is going to be a good story, and we're going to learn, and we're going to have partners now to help do this in other areas in the village, and that's pretty exciting.
I am going to motion that we approve the sale of the 8 westerly lots as discussed and noted in our packet to the Housing Trust as detailed in our packet this evening.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
I,
Aye.
Can I just
Opposed?
ask a clarifying question? So
Can we-
there
can
has
we
to be
get
a
the vote? Can
resolution
we-
for the sale of
Heidi?
village properties?
Heidi,
Yeah,
we need to conclude the vote first, right?
okay.
So we got the ayes in. Do we have any nays?
Nay.
Okay, so 6-1 in favor. Okay, and now Julie, you have, between you and Heidi, then you have some questions?
My question is on the motion. Does that include the deed restrictions proposed by the Plan Commission?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And my question is this coming back to the board with a draft resolution to approve the sale of those lots? Because we need to have a resolution for sale.
then it will have to.
So then we'll just have to have the resolution on next month's.
So should the motion read approving the sale of the lots or approving the drafting of a resolution to sell the lots to the housing partnership?
That's fine. Let's let Julie decide what the best wordsmithing is on that.
Okay,
All right, and then we'll have it as an agenda for formal resolution next month. But for all intents and purposes, Mariah and Christina, you've got the 8.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yep,
guys.
Much
thank you.
appreciated. And we look forward to a lifetime of partnering with you.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you. Item number 8D. Discussion on the DDC allocation of funds. Julie?
Yes, so like I said, I just want you to ignore page 29. And I want you to ignore page 30 and 31. And what we're really talking about is what's on page 32. So this is the Strategic Community Partnership Allocation of Funds form. What happens is you get to designate what percentage of the funds are going to what business association. And we only have one business association, so it becomes pretty clear for us. Our funds go to Sister Bay Advancement Association. So basically 100% would go to them. You know, it's not like we're going to give 50% to Jackson Ford, etc. So this is just, we previously said that it would be 100%. This is just verifying that allocation and then needing the chair's signature to verify that. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, this is, like I said, I apologize. We got the wrong form earlier, so I kind of messed things up.
So we need a motion to approve processing the SCP allocation of funds form, correct?
At 100% to the Sister Bay Advancement Association.
Right, I will make that motion.
Okay, I'll second it then.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
I,
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 8E, the SBAA Agreement for Promotional Services and Events. As noted, pages 33 to 39 in our packets. Do we have any discussion or questions on the agreement?
Rob, just a
Yes.
few, just a couple comments on here. You know, this is the annual agreement that we have. There are some, you know, I was talking to Louise a little bit, you know, that looking forward, moving forward, I think we need to have a discussion on our involvement in Fall Fest. So that would be something in the coming year. So I just want to bring that to your attention. It doesn't really affect anything that's in the agreement, but it is something I want you to know that moving forward, we will hopefully be able to put some discussion into, because it is listed as one of the events in here, and that's why I bring that forward. And then just real to the payment, you know, it does, we do pay quarterly. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that. And it does require some reporting and documentation be submitted. It also requires an annual report February 1st. My understanding is the board has not been seeing those. So I guess while we're discussing this, is that something the board wants to see as we progress along here?
My question would be, has staff been seeing those reports? Because it's a question I asked the prior administrator and never got an answer on. So I'm just wondering, historically, has staff been seeing those reports?
I have not seen any. I see Denise has her hand up there.
Is Tasha still with us?
I can answer that question. Janelle sees them every month.
Janelle's not, we talked about that. The problem is when Janelle is serving on SBAA, she's serving as an SBAA employee and not a village employee. So the real village contact would be myself or Tasha as the one who's cutting the check.
And so when Rob sees them every month, does that count?
No, they actually have to be submitted to us. So, and that's minor. We can do that, Louise, right? If they're getting them, we just make sure that we get them from this point forward. But yeah, Tasha has not been seeing them. I know I have not been seeing them. So just something we want to make sure moving forward. And then of course, like you said, is that something we want the board to see or not? I don't know. It's an
It's one of the things that came up and I said, well, when Bo left, that his files would needed to be checked or whatever, because my assumption was that just like reports that are put together from minutes from the meeting that Janelle does, whatever. Apparently, it sounds like Janelle was not forwarding those to Bo, or they were not being saved by Bo or what have you. So it just sounds like we need to make sure that those reports that are in the agreement as noted there in section 5.2 and 5.3 actually make it to Julie, correct?
Correct. I think, the confusion here as I listen to this conversation is I think Louise was thinking, correct me if I'm wrong, Louise, hey, Janelle is seeing these every month. She's going to send it to the right people. The problem is when Janelle is serving SBAA doing minutes, she's not serving as a village employee. She's serving as an SBAA employee, I think. So I think that's where we might have had a little issue with not getting those.
No, we used to get them. We used to get them in the board packets.
Okay.
And it was just kind of pages of wasted. And I think at one point in time, we said that they did not need to be in the board packets as long as staff was reviewing it.
Why don't we just do that? Make sure we, either myself or Tasha get some, and if there's, we can always do a summary in the report, in our monthly report. I agree. I don't think you need to be looking through pages and pages and pages of expenses and things of that nature.
How about if we simplify that, Julie, and rather than say, let's make sure either you or Tasha, why don't we just make sure you get them as our administrator, and then you can share them as required or necessary or at your choosing with Tasha.
That
Denise?
sounds good.
Okay, and so then to back up,
Could we bring conclusion to that before we back up, Denise, please, just for a second? So is that to our SBAA teammates in the meeting, is that clear then? You'll just, rather than Janelle seeing them, all those reports as stipulated in the agreement will be forwarded to Julie?
Oh, certainly. I never knew Tasha never saw them.
Yeah, just moving forward, what the stuff that's in the agreement, Julie will get.
Absolutely. But
Okay.
no problem.
Right. Thank you. Denise?
so a comment that Julie made, I don't understand. So can you tell me, what do you mean about SBAA and moving forward with Fall Fest and we have to have a conversation? What is that about?
So when we were working on the budget and everything, we were looking at the amount of money that we spend on events the village does. And the one that really struck out was Fall Fest. And we tallied up the time and the expenses, and as a village, we're spending a lot of money on that event. I did check with City of Sturgeon Bay, and I said, hey, what are you guys doing for events? When there's these big events, what is your city actually paying? And they do it quite differently. So, you know, the organization has to, which would be in this case, SBAA in Sturgeon Bay, it's Destination Sturgeon Bay. They're paying for somebody to do traffic control. They're paying for somebody to pick up the garbage. And then if they do need city staff or something, they're paying them an hourly wage. So when we put up when we tallied up the numbers of what was being spent, and I don't have the numbers in front of me offhand, I think it was 32,000. Louise, was that right? Does that sound right? Let me pull it up here real quick.
Oh, sorry. Is your question what? I'm sorry, the question what you give us for Fall Fest, what you're spending with us for Fall Fest? Or
So just real quick, yeah, if I can open it up here. So we decided to start looking at what we were really paying. So we looked at if we took an average hourly wage, and then we looked at what we were spending, we had that before the event even takes place, the village has basically $11,000 invested in Fall Fest. The weekend of the event, we spend another 11,500 on it. And then the week after the event, we're spending a little over 9,000 cleaning up, maintaining, things of that nature. So, you know, we looked at the total, and it's about a little over 32,000 is what we're investing in it in time. And
sweet.
You know, as an administrator, I'm looking at it and I'm looking at the budgets, and I'm hearing complaints, you know, our guys aren't doing this, you know, there's not time to do everything. And I'm like, I want to have a conversation. Is there a better way to do this? Because I don't, you know, it's not pertinent to have it as part of an agreement. It's just Fall Fest is one of those agreements covered in there. And that's why, you know, I bring it up that moving forward, I do want to have a conversation with Louise to see, is there a better way to do it? For example, maybe our guys help through anything through Friday at 5, but after that, maybe should that be contracted out like other municipalities do? So it was just a little alarming, the amount that was actually spent on the event.
Well, let me just.
Denise and then
comment that-
Denise and then Don.
Okay, so you're saying our guys don't have enough time to get done what's supposed to get done now, and yet I was told by the DPW to not hire or replace somebody who left in January because the village didn't need it. So now that's in contradiction that we're one person down and the guys don't have enough time to get done what needs to get done. Secondly, what is Destination Sturgeon Bay, or what is the city of Sturgeon Bay give Destination Sturgeon Bay in room tax allocation?
25%.
I don't know their numbers offhand.
25%.
So double what the village is giving.
And they also deliver more room tax. I would like to comment on the
I'm gonna make a quick comment on
$30,000.
the DPW too. The previous Parks Director said he did not need someone. We've already hired and filled that position just last week.
So Don has a question, and then Louise, after Don, you can make your comment.
It really wasn't a question, I guess, maybe just I'm sort of surprised hearing about this. Is this really a problem that needs a solution? I appreciate, Julie, I appreciate you acknowledging and noticing the money we're spending on it, but I mean, it's a huge event. Is there a problem for us to solve, or is just something that we noticed and something to consider? Because I mean, quite frankly, if it's been this way and it works, you know, what are we trying to solve? Maybe we just move on from it if it's not really that big of a concern. I'd be interested to hear from others.
So my question would be, Julie brought this up at the Sister Bay Advancement Association board meeting. And after the board meeting, she sent me the document that she's referring to. I've had no chance to respond. I don't know where the numbers came from. I don't know who gave her the numbers. I don't know. She's never been to a fall festival. Dan, did you go to Fall Festival last year? Dan Klansky, did you go to Fall Fest last year?
My kids did. I'm a little old for that.
Okay, so Dan Klansky didn't go, but I think he gave you the numbers. And I think that the type sheet that you got was the checklist that I gave to Dan Lundquist. And it did not include everything that you did, including 3 hours to watch the hay bales being stacked. So before you say that the village spent 30 grand, you told me that the village spent 20,000 on garbage. I called Going. The village spent 1,300. We've been tracking garbage with Going for 8 years. So
Louise,
until
I also told you that was an error and it was.
I know you did, but my point is that until you tell my village board that you spent $30,000 in the Parks Department when you didn't, you've never been there. Dan has never been there. Eric has never been there, has never seen what goes on, doesn't know anything about anything, but has a document that they think might be right. And haven't even talked to me about it, but tell the village board, this is what you spent. So I'm not signing up for it.
Okay, Louise, I did tell you that we wanted to discuss this, okay? And we do know where a lot of these numbers came from. Tasha does track the overtime. We know what we're spending on employees. We know what they're spending their work time on. So these aren't fudged numbers. And again, this is just something I bring up that I think we need to have a conversation moving forward. Part of my job is to look at our fiduciary responsibility. And when we are taking employees and paying them time and a half to work a weekend, my comment is there a better way to do that? Maybe we can get things set up by Friday. Is there some way to do that rather than avoid all this overtime and expenses? And that's why, as I explained to your board, I'd like to have a conversation on it. When we did meet with your board, we glossed over it when it came up on the agenda later, but I do think it's something we should talk about moving forward, because as this event grows, this can really cost us a lot of money. So
I think to Don Cox's point, it's a fine forum to move discussion on this down the road, perhaps to another SBAA meeting, et cetera. And we can go from there on that. Tasha?
So I just wanted to try and bring it back to the SBA operating agreement. We've, talked about the operating agreement and, almost every couple of years. And in the last 2 years, we have done a number of different funding vehicles. We've done flat support fees. We've done percentage of room tax. We've done a fill the gap measure then this year. So what I want to bring back is that this agreement is looking at funding at a level of 12% of the prior year's room tax. Currently, the SBA is getting about, I don't know if it's 10.5, it's 11%, it's an odd number, of the village's room tax this year. It was a fill the gap measure. With the change in room tax and what is, going on, the SBA is getting, it looks like, about 13,000 more in SCP funds next year. And with this agreement at 12%, my estimation would be that the village will be paying the SBA an additional $20,000 above what we're paying this year. So my question to the trustees would be, do you feel like that is beneficial to the village? Is that a wise use of funds? In the past, we have talked about reducing support and the SBA standing more on their own instead of increasing support. What what direction do you want to go on this operating agreement?
I think the way it's written is just fine.
Chad?
Yeah, I think we all recognize, at least in a town like this, in a tourism town, on how much the SBA does, that it doesn't just promote business. They're community builders. They're the face of us. And I know a while back, and previous two administrators ago, tried to hire somebody in-house to be the face of us, and that was a debacle. Not that it couldn't be done, but they're just good at what they do, and allows government to govern and allows them to promote, and it's a good partnership. So I'm good with it.
I'm good with it as well. I also appreciate that Julie's bringing up this expenditure money, because it's Luisa's job to do everything she can for the village through SBA. It's Julie's job to point these things out. And I guess I'd say, thank you, Julie, for pointing that out. And let's figure out how much it costs. And that's a wonderful use of money, in my opinion. But we should figure it out.
I agree. The only thing I would mention is, obviously we have some people who expressed some emotional views on this tonight, which is all well and good in the spirit of things. However, I would just mention for the record, I don't think it serves the village well for our Director of Public Works to be accused of not knowing anything about anything. I think that comment was very misplaced and inappropriate. And quite frankly, I'm surprised to hear that from somebody from SBAA. Those of us on the board know that our Director of Public Works knows quite a bit about many things, and he's been a huge addition to the village. That being said, I will ask for a motion from somebody on the trustees regarding the agreement.
I make a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 8F,
We appreciate it.
discussion approving the insurance changes and the HSA contribution detailed in pages 40 to 43 of our packet. Julie, can you lead us through this one, please?
Sure. The one regarding insurance, Tasha really knows more about, but as you recall, back in June, the board had talked about a possible CPI raise for the employees, and then looking at benefits in general, seeing what we could do. We did go to the Joint Personnel Finance Committee in June and July, in July and August. And we presented to them a number of benefits or ways that we could try and retain employees or even attract the talent when we need to do that. Just real quick refresher. We know that we went through 22 employees in 10 years. We have a staff of 15, so 22 is pretty, is kind of like replacing every single employee you had in a very short period of time. And 10 of those 22 had cited the medical benefits in particular as an issue. So the Personnel and Finance Committee, looked at everything. They looked at other benefits too, which we'll get into. They're still looking at some other ones. But the insurance was one where we saw there was a direct benefit in looking at a different insurance provider and how we're structured or how we're structuring to do that. So I'll let Tasha go through the details on that. I don't speak the language very well, to be honest with you.
Okay, so one of the providers that we looked at was the state health insurance pool. One of the biggest complaints we have heard from previous employees and employees in general is that our employees are age rated and each employee and dependent receives their own premium. There's no family rate, there's a single rate, and then there's a rate for every single dependent. And for families, that can get really, really costly. So going through the state insurance pool allowed us to become more group covered. We would be lumped into that group. Looking at that, at the rates for 2022, I can't compare 2023 yet because they are not available. I can't give those rates. But comparing 2022 to 2022, so our rates to WEP rates, the WEP plan was a little bit more expensive. However, another complaint that we got from a lot of employees, and when we compared to other municipalities and where we're trying to pull employees from, or where our employees are going to, is that the village on the dependent side contributed far less of the premiums. And that came onto the employee. So as soon as you brought that amount even with the other amount, so an 85-15 split across the board, the WEP plan becomes cheaper across the board, regardless of plan option, except for the most expensive plan option. In discussing all of this with the personnel committee, my recommendation was to go with the WEP plan and the high deductible health plan. That is the cheapest plan through the WEP. We would also recommend that HSA contributions are maintained at the level they are currently at. So that does not change for next year. Many of the employees see a real benefit to HSAs, particularly our younger employees who don't use as much of their healthcare. They really see that as a savings vehicle for them and a way, to help their family out in the long term. And then we would also recommend going with WEP for dental care. It's combined in with the healthcare and also offering vision insurance to the employees. That's not something that we offer at this time. So all of the data, there's a ton of information in there. I gave you probably more than you need to know, but all the nitty-gritty details are there. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
So yes, I've been involved in those joint meetings, the last few that we have had. And I would like to propose a change. It's on page 40. It's in the first paragraph. And it's the second bullet point. The village's HSA contribution will remain at the amount that it is currently, $2,100 for singles and $4,200 for families. I would like to propose that each employee, whether they have a family or not, receives the same HSA payment. So I'm proposing that we double the single.
That's more than
I think that exceeds what a single's allowed.
Yeah, I think that exceeds what's allowed.
Okay,
think
what's
if
allowed?
I would be in favor of wording it, the maximum amount allowed no greater than 4,200 for singles.
But Rob, I don't disagree with you, but that number changes every year. So then they would get an increasing benefit. And that you may just have to word it differently. I mean, I know what Denise's point is here to try to make it equal, and I don't have a problem with that, but at some point, the single deduction will be higher than the 4,200. Maybe it's 7 years from now, maybe it's 3 years from now.
Not if you word it not to be higher than.
Okay.
42, not to be higher than the 4,200 for families, but whatever the maximum single taxpayer contribution is federally allowed. Or something to that effect. I would agree with that.
What did you look it up, Tasha? What is it?
$36.50 for singles.
That where it would come into question would be it's if you're 55 or older, it increases.
Right, you get another $1,000.
So that it needs to be worded in the sense that the maximum for the single taxpayer, not to exceed more than 4,200 per year, because you could have, somebody who's older than 55. I think right now it's 4,000, but I believe next year it's going up to 4,500. So there should just, some sort of contingency should be on there to that effect.
I realize, okay, if it's $36.50, that that's an additional $1,500 per single employee that we have. But I've always been an advocate, being a single person my whole life, that we kind of get the shaft. something happens to a single person, they do not have a second income to fall back on. And I just think it just evens out. The employee is the employee. And because somebody chose to have a family and get married is a life choice, and it shouldn't have really anything to do with the equality of all of our employees.
I agree with you, Denise, but you know, if you put 3650 in there, to your point, you're penalizing somebody 55 or older. And I don't think your intention is to do that,
It's
so.
fine. Whatever the wording, whoever
Yeah.
comes up with the wording that's appropriate, that's fine. I'm just making my point. I don't know if people agree or disagree, don't want to spend the money, whatever.
Do we have
Yeah.
consensus on that amendment to the recommendation? Or any objection to it?
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I'm okay.
Any other discussion or commentary? Or a
I-
motion?
I do on page 44. Item number 1, supervisors have more flexibility in offering alternative work schedules for their employees, for example, to avoid beach and downtown congestion on
That's the
Fridays.
next
item.
agenda item, Denise.
Okay, well, because there's not agenda items on the pages again.
Okay, well, page 44 of the packet is part of 8G, so.
Okay. Then that was the only thing that I had to say.
So if the board agrees with this proposal as it is stated right now, I will move forward with the resolution. A resolution would come to you guys in September for passage. There's a special state resolution that has to be passed and some additional paperwork that has to be done.
So the motion would be to move forward with the drafting of the resolution as noted with the one amendment to what's on page 40 as discussed.
Yes.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
The second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Tasha and Julie. Item 8G, amendments to the personnel handbook. The work week, flex time, on-call vehicle use or mileage, personal days, boot reimbursement, insurance and associated programs as noted on pages 44 to 57 of our packet. Julie, would you start us on this,
Sure.
please?
Again, this came out of the Joint Personnel Finance Committee, and basically, like I said, they're still looking at incentives, but these were the ones they were ready to move forward. The first was the opportunity for supervisors to look at their functions and say, you know, should we be working Monday through Friday, or do we split our staff? Do some work Monday through Friday? I'm sorry, Monday through Thursday, and some work Tuesday through Friday. We felt that it should be more clear in the manual that a supervisor has that ability. However, the committee did make it very clear that they thought before that should happen, the employee should be polled. So somebody should ask the employees, what do you want? Because you might have some employees that are going to say, no, it just doesn't work for me. You know, maybe they have to pick children up at 3:30 or something. If this is approved, if this goes through, like I said, then we'll start polling our employees to see what should, you know, do they want alternate work schedules, and what would those be? You know, like Dave was talking about, the county is doing that they're done Fridays at noon. You know, is that, we just wanted to look and say, is that a benefit that maybe we want to pursue here? And so that was one of them that we had discussed and had approved. Denise, I don't know where Rob is.
So that was my question. So you mentioned part of it, that we wanted to know how individual departments and staff would be interested in this, but we also talked about not moving this forward until we heard from department heads on would this actually even work in their department. So I'm not comfortable moving that forward because that's the other half of the conversation that we had.
Okay, I know myself and Tasha, because we talked about that, that's not what we got out of it, but we can hold that back. We can pull them and then bring that back. That's a misunderstanding, I know, on our part, because we thought that the committee had said that was send it forward. And then before a department could actually implement that, they had to pull the employees. The supervisor couldn't just decide that on their own.
Well, Rob, am I wrong? that
No,
we-
I agree with you, Denise, and I think where the confusion is coming from the staff perspective right now is there was a fork in the road on this discussion, and one avenue was how office staff felt, and what Denise and I, to my recollection, agreed on during the meeting was this, we're talking about something that would on the surface be a lot more easily done in the office rather than necessarily out in the parks and maintenance and with Dan Klansky's team. And so to Denise, I agree with Denise's point that we need to have some polling and some feedback from Dan Klansky and the other leads and managers reporting to Dan before moving this forward.
Okay, that's, like I said, that was a misunderstanding on my part. We'll do that. We always have a management meeting the day after the board, so we can discuss that tomorrow and start polling and working on possible scenarios the employees want to see. So the second thing there was to allow flex time for short absences. You know, sometimes if you, let's say you just have to pick a prescription up real quick, or I don't know, go to the doctor real quick, rather than use your time off, allow an employee to flex their schedule. It really works better for some positions rather than others, but an example is if Janelle has to get her hair cut, let her leave as long as she works 2 hours later that day, something to that effect. So that was one of the amendments or benefits we thought was appealing. And then the other thing was if supervisors need to run back to the village at night or on weekends, maybe it's for an emergency, let them use a vehicle or be reimbursed for the mileage that they run back. This is something we often see with Public Works. You know, maybe there's some equipment that they're concerned about. So Dan is running up here on on Saturday and Sunday. Should he be able to take a vehicle or be reimbursed the mileage? Dan prefers the mileage reimbursement, but we did feel that was fair and that was a good perk or benefit to put in there. So that was recommended as well. Then just a note, we did discuss the days that we have off. You know, we don't give off for Juneteenth, which is the newest holiday, Veterans Day, some other ones. And the committee felt, well, why not add 3 personal days to the paid time off schedule? So if somebody does want to take off for Juneteenth, or let's say they're veterans and they want to be off for Veterans Day, that they would actually be able to do that then. And then one incentive was, instead of having this you use it or lose it attitude, we say they get paid out for any time remaining at the end of the year. So that's kind of an incentive to say, hey, don't take all your time, because if you want money, you know, work hard, work those days, and you're actually going to get paid out at the end of the year, without that feeling that they're going to lose it. So
For those 3 additional days.
well, correct, the 3 additional paid time off days.
Which for clarification, for trustees, was confirmed during our personnel meeting when we discussed it. Essentially, if by implementing that, every person getting the 3 personal days, we'd be following what the state of Wisconsin does with their employees in terms of those 3 additional days. We would be tweaking it a little bit, perhaps, to say, you know, if somebody chose not to use those because they wanted the money at the end of the year, that would be an option for them.
And then the last one that we brought forward at this point was regarding the boot reimbursement. So For anybody that buys steel toe boots, you know that they cost about $200 a year. We only give, and the guys go through a pair a year. We only give them $100. So basically these employees are paying to work here, paying for their boots to be able to work here, which we really didn't think was fair. You know, if you're going to require steel toe boots, you should be paying for those steel toe boots.
Right.
So that was the other part of the proposal. So, you know, if you are inclined to approve these, number one is the one you'd want to strike until we can get more information.
I would just, go ahead, Denise.
I have a question on page 46.
Yes.
Under callback, starting on line 21, on call does not imply the need to remain constantly available for contact by phone or the need to remain in close proximity to the workplace. So that's already all been in there. So I'm wondering, is this what's in red something new, or you're just clarifying because they are already compensated?
So the red is what is being proposed. Those are the changes that are being proposed.
So basically what, in general terms, we're saying there should be a mileage reimbursement for somebody called in on emergency purposes, unless for some reason a supervisor, for whatever particular type of emergency it was, would want to be using a work vehicle. Is that it, Julie?
Yeah, but that's under B. That's under on line 28. So I'm wondering, what is provide compensation to utilities and parks public works employees as established in the annual budget? What is that specific to? What compensation? It's not the mileage.
Right. So, so right now we do pay employees an on-call rate. And my understanding is that is discussed and set at budget. We know basically what you make and what your rate is going to be for the year. And that's just clarifying, saying you're going to get the rate that was approved when they did the budget. You're not going to be getting some special rates or anything like that. That was
so it's clarification. It's not something new. That was my question.
In talking to Tasha, when we were looking at these, that was kind of a cleanup measure just to fix something.
Okay.
Yeah, good point on that.
I think the $200 for steel toe boots is not enough to get a decent pair of steel toe boots. It's at least $250 or $300. I'm just looking for Red Wings. They're about $230 each, just before you even get them shipped or anything.
Denise?
So when I propose the additional 3 personal days, because that's what the state gives their employees, the state gives their employees $35 a year for steel toe boots. Just for comparison.
Yeah.
So Denise, what my logic on here is get better boots, buy less often, waste less. That's really where my thought was coming from. Maybe you don't need to get them every year if you get a decent pair. Maybe you do.
No, I'm sure they do have to get them every year. I'm sure, for as much as that they wear them.
Yeah, I think too, when it comes to boots, especially when you're working, for example, in some of parks and some of these areas, when the boots are getting wet, you know, there's the chance for, I forget what you call it, where the foot is always wet.
French foot.
French foot.
And it starts rotting. You know, we don't want to be, we want to be fair. They, you know, have them get the warm, new boots.
$300 then. Let's let them go and get a decent boot.
We did talk about that, Nate. Clearly some are more than that, but we also know that a good boot, they can get a fair boot, you know, under 200, and, you know, doubling it we thought was pretty fair.
I don't think so.
And Klansky, does the raising it to 200s with all the additional changes on the table, does that seem fair at this time to raise it to 200?
You could go 250. The last pair I bought were 250. I mean, if you could add that extra 50, that's about the average I'd say that the boots cost. Plus in utilities, if you get, you know, wastewater, you get chemicals, you get different things on them. We do really go through a pair of boots and several pairs of uniforms every year.
Well, 250 is half between what Denise and Nate mentioned. I would be okay with 250 along with Dan's point.
I'm okay with that.
Me too.
Okay. So we would amend that motion. I would just, I know we said we're striking number one from consideration. I just, for clarity's sake, I want to go back and just emphasize one thing, Julie.
Yes.
When we, in your summary point about the work week and the flex time, you mentioned that, you know, you would get back to seeing what the employees want to see. And I fully agree with that. But in my opinion, what we need to make sure doesn't get lost by the wayside is Dan Klansky's opinion in his, you know, supervisory opinion on, you know, is everything the employees like to see pie in the sky that in reality operationally is not going to be a plus or even feasible for the village. I think that has to be part of that analysis. Denise?
I agree that office staff, it's a whole different ballgame. Sister Bay is a destination. Weekends are the busiest. I don't know how we don't have staff on, possibly on some of the weekends. I understand that there's somebody probably always on call one of those days, checking the bathrooms or whatever. It's not a full day from my understanding, but I could be understanding that incorrectly. Yeah, it's more important for me to hear not what necessarily the employees want, but is it actually feasible and does it make sense? I mean,
And I think Denise, to your point, that has to be part of this, and that's where we have to count on Dan's leadership is, you know, part of this is, you know, in theory, this just came up at Fire Board in terms of the on-call and as it relates to staff. And, you know, Chief Hecht clarified again, as he has in years past, when you start, you know, increasing on-call or, you know, implementing on-call and the fact that you're being paid for on-call, when that begins or increases, initially a lot of employees think, oh, that's great, you know, I'm getting paid to be on call. But, you know, a few months down the road, they would prefer not to get that call at a certain time and just know I'm either working today or I'm off. So I'm sure that's something that Dan will be looking at in these considerations of, you know, do we shorten work weeks, et cetera. Chad?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, it's easy to think about it from an office standpoint, but you know, what Dan might be able to do is rotate where one employee gets off every or gets off a Friday, you know, and just rotate that. Like, don't worry about this box. Come up with the box that works for your staff and your department, and maybe try to create a way where it still gives somebody a little bit more time off on a Friday afternoon, you know, every now and then. Maybe it can't be every day, every week, but it could be once a month or something. So I would just recommend you thinking about it in those terms if you can.
great idea, Chad.
Thanks.
So does somebody want to make a motion regarding everything except item number 1 on page 44, or do we need further discussion?
And with the 250 for the boots, right?
Right. So it sounds like we would be looking, Julie would be looking for a motion to approve the amendments to the personnel handbook as noted with the addition of $250 for boots annually and a removal of item number 1 on page 44 of the packet until further analysis is done.
Well, it's also in the agreement on page. It would have to be stricken from the agreement also on page 45 under number 5 hours of work.
Okay.
My understanding was what Rob just said did strike that, but we could
Okay.
be more clear on that as well if you'd like. We can
I
make a
would
motion
like-
very clear on that
Yes,
when we type it. Okay.
Okay. So I will make that motion.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you for your work on behalf of the team and all of our employees on that, Julie and Dan and everyone else so far. Tasha, thank you.
Gotcha, yeah.
All right, item 8H, a review of the financial statements and monthly bills is noted on page 58 to 66 of our packet. Does anyone have any questions for Tasha?
I have a couple. Dave Lino already answered one. On page 63, Bear Graphics, Village Checks. I presume that they're the company that prints the village checks.
They are.
You get like 10,000 at a time or something?
We actually bought some ahead. There's a paper shortage,
Oh,
particularly on specialty paper, and we didn't want to run out of checks.
okay. So you did get like 10,000 of them?
We got quite a few. That's not 10,000, but that'll get us through for a while.
Okay. All right. And on the bottom, page 64, Anthem Blue Cross, our August premium was 15,300. The September premium is 26,200. What is the $11,000 increase?
Back charges for 3 new employees. They don't like us to make the adjustments for each check as we go. They like it to wait for it to be billed and then, just pay what's billed. Obviously, we review that, but pay what's billed.
Okay. And on page 65, Bernie's Well and Water, Village Hall toilets, $3,000. What happened?
That is a very good question for Eric.
Is that the new toilet that was required to be installed at the village hall?
It
One
is related
toilet?
to all that. I don't know why
He
though.
had to replace a number of old toilets. He was having trouble with a couple that weren't properly fastened down. Kept backing up, so he got some turbo flushes and installed them in there.
How many for $3,000?
I'm thinking there's
3,
3.
3.
I know there's. I can clarify that.
Okay. Wow, I'll just leave my comment at that.
It is on the list of village hall expenses, which we'll be discussing at planning commission.
Yeah.
Tasha,
Well, and I guess that's why I'm a little surprised if the village hall is used so little. And then we spend now granted, yep, we can take the toilets out and use them someplace else if that building goes away.
That is the thought.
Okay. All right. That's all. I have.
Tasha, on the Bear Graphics and the 10,000 order of village checks, I just want to give you the opportunity to dispel the rumor that those 10,000 checks have the Chicago Bears insignia logo on them. Is that a dirty rumor?
That's a dirty rumor. Bear Graphics is it's a great company out of Wisconsin. So
right. Thank you. Any other questions for Tasha? I will motion that we approve the monthly bills in the total amount as noted.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Tasha. Item number 9, staff reports.
I will start if you're okay with that.
Wonderful.
So just big kudos to Heidi. She had a surprise visit when she was doing the election this week. They did an accessibility audit on her and she passed with flying colors. They even noted that they really liked some of the signage she did, curbside signage, which they were actually gonna talk to others about, and also noted that they really liked the privacy screens that she had on the table. So I thought that was pretty cool, Heidi. She did a good job.
Way to go, Heidi.
Way to go, Heidi. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In here, you'll see a note about CDBG funding. I had indicated I was going to do an income study. Basically, to qualify for CDBG funds, 51% of your people have to be low to moderate income, and we are exactly 50%. So you can do a study to prove that number wrong and then, make you more eligible for the grants. The problem is I'm trying to debate whether or not I should proceed with that because with CDBG, the money we'd want to tap into would be for the Wiltsey property and the residential part of it to help pay for infrastructure and stuff like that. And they don't have money right now. So I don't even know if it pays to go through the income study. So that was not good to hear. The outdoor rec plan, we had talked about sending out a survey with the water bill. Those only go out quarterly, so we could not send out the outdoor rec plan survey with that. So Janelle actually she talked to the postmaster and found an easier way to contact all of the residents. She also worked on a postcard. So I was grateful for her time spent on that. That survey, that postcard got mailed yesterday, I think it was. To all those that have an actual residence here. So we're polling the residents. We'll get those responses back on September 15th. Fire truck funding, we're still in the running for that appropriations bill funding. Video postings, as you know, we have a volunteer right now that posts our meetings for us. It's taking a couple weeks to get out there, get them posted. We've had a lot of complaints. So Janelle took it upon herself to figure out how to get them posted. And so she's been posting them for us. Denise?
So at the end of that, it said, we hope that we can continue to work with him for recording in-person meetings as needed. We had decided when the pandemic first came around and we went to Zoom that we would never need to spend that $250 a meeting anymore because if the hybrids that we do and it's all recorded on that.
Yeah, I did talk to staff and they said that their understanding was if there was something in person and we needed it recorded, he would be our go-to. We didn't want to burn the bridge. He would still help us out on that.
Okay, all right.
Hopefully we don't have to use that, or if we do, it's rare, but he's still available to us. But
Okay.
As far as posting them, we're just gonna do that ourselves in-house.
Good.
At the last meeting, there was a request for information regarding the liquor licenses, what the fees are, what can legally be charged. So Heidi gave us that information. It's in the report. Basically, there's only one license out there that we could charge a greater fee, and it has very few people that take advantage of that license. So it's really
Well, I think it was my question, and I just wanted to know if we had to prorate the license. But I guess if you're citing Wisconsin state statutes, then we do have to prorate them by law.
Heidi, can you comment on that? I didn't think it got prorated. By my understanding, it was a flat fee, but maybe you can comment on that.
No, in the report, proration is required.
It is required. Okay.
So that was the only question that I had.
And then short-term rentals, Heidi had a report in there. I just want to give an update on that. So she, we thought, based on the information from the tourism zone, we thought we had just a little over 50 short-term rentals. It looks like we may have about 100 that she's working with. Heidi also went through and found, 27 of them she's up to 27 that were listed with the tourism zone, but never got their permits from us. So we do have a conversation coming up with the tourism zone to make sure that if they're approving somebody, they're making them well aware they need a permit from us as well. Because it really becomes, Heidi and I've had a ton of complaints about short-term rentals in neighborhoods where they're not on the list. So, that's a battle, something we're working on, but just give an update where we're at with that. The last thing I just want to say real quick is, and I'm going to do a big kudos to Heidi again here. So we do get a grant we can get a grant for election security measures. And it's kind of like an automatic one is my understanding, but we did get that, right, Heidi? it's $1,200 that we can use for cybersecurity improvements during elections, correct?
Well, we're waiting for the documentation to come out to fill out, but yeah, it sounds like it's a pretty much guarantee that we'll get some funding. And they're gonna build a secure area at the fire station for me to store election equipment.
Very good.
Wonderful.
Yep.
That's all I
Thank
had.
you. Thank you, Julie. Dan Klansky? Anything to add this evening?
Yes, just the utility crew did a great job this month. I put in the notes, they saved almost $10,000 by, we removed our own pump, purchased one, got it installed. It was pretty significant savings.
Excellent. Anything else from staff?
Well, I have a question about the Parks report.
Okay, Denise, go ahead, please.
72, library post office, item number 1. Eric has met with Tri-City Glass to address a number of failing windows in the post office. And Julie asked that we not spend the money until we know the plan commission's recommendation. I mean, we didn't specifically say that we want to keep it, but I thought it was pretty specific that we did not want it torn down. So I think if the windows need to be replaced, because that is the building that if we want to repurpose it at some point in time, if we build a new post office on the Wilsey property or on Autumn Court, that is the building that will be repurposed.
Right, so I had told them that we were gonna be discussing it at our upcoming plan commission meeting and ask if they could just hold off a little bit on that. I forget
Okay.
what Dan told me the windows were. They were crazy expensive, weren't they, Dan? And we just said, well, let's just hold off until we have more direction on that before we spend all that money on it. So.
Yeah, I talked to Eric about this too, and the windows, they're gonna be fine until next year, so we could actually budget for it. We would go way over budget. The budget's not there.
What did it come in at, Tasha?
It was.
I wanna say
30
3,000?
Per window?
I don't think it was per window.
No, it wasn't per window. I wanna say it was around
$4,500 for windows
800,
and
plus
paint.
we'd need to do some reframing. So
Yeah.
it would have been like probably around $4,000.
We have 4,500 in the budget next year.
For how many windows?
Yeah.
For how many? For all the windows?
It's the
At
big
the-
four in the front of the post office, those large ones.
Gotcha. That doesn't actually sound terribly expensive in today's
No,
world.
it sounds better than toilets.
There you go.
Relative.
Yeah.
Push in one hand and move along on the other. All right, anything else from staff or for staff? Thank you, staff. Item number 10, committee reports. Administrative Committee, no activities underway. Communications Technology Committee,
Has not met.
Coastal Byways. Anything on Coastal Byways? Oh, we're waiting on Mary to get off of mute. There we go.
Sorry,
That's okay.
we're not meeting till next month.
Thank you. DCEDC,
I couldn't make the meeting.
okay. Emergency Management Plan Committee, still not meeting forever, Denise?
Yep.
Okay. Finance Committee,
We've had some joint meetings. We have, I think 3 more scheduled, although we did receive an email from Tasha that the August 22nd one has been canceled, correct?
yes.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Fire Board, the big news is that there is a county-wide call radio technology upgrade coming, having to do with VHF, UHF, et cetera, for all the call radios. The fire department is using a specialty consultant to advise the county. This is an approximate $20 million cost for what is determined to be a 20-year or less lifespan. The fire department hopes to bring along all governmental users in the county for cost sharing. Tasha's in the loop on this request from the fire board that the fire board is requesting that all villages and towns in the county consider their finance committees create a line item for this user fee in the event the total cost is not handled via a countywide levy. That's what we know at this time. And the main thing of importance at this point is Tasha's in the loop, and per Chief Hecht at the fire board meeting last week, the emphasis at this point is trying to see if a countywide levy would handle this. Scott, did you have anything else you wanted to mention?
Nothing else, Rob. It's good.
Thank you. Green Tier Legacy Community Committee, substantive meetings continue. One thing of interest I think the board will be find interesting is that we now have Green Tier committee members who are attending the state's quarterly Green Tier meetings. The last state quarterly meeting emphasized grant attainment and how grant opportunities have increased since Governor Evers' creation of the Office of the Rural Prosperity. So we are moving forward in identifying for Dan Klansky, Julie, et cetera, additional grant opportunities that might be out there for us. Historical Society.
The meeting was last Thursday. I was not able to attend. However, I did speak with Jill Loest, who has taken John Fletcher's place due to his passing. Had an excellent meeting. They brought up the Door County DCC Community Fund and put on a very good presentation. There were a couple other fundraisers there also that were in on the meeting. She gave a good presentation, so things look good for some fundraising opportunities down the road. That was pretty much it.
Thanks, Scott. Ad hoc Land Acquisition Oversight Committee.
No meetings.
Library Commission.
Yeah, so actually a couple of cool things. So we've had in July about 5,000 visitors, and we're working towards doing more consistent hours. So it, throughout the year, so 6 days a week, it'll be like the same hours every single day, which I think is great for staffing and visitors and just locals. Particularly next week on Thursday, if anyone's available, Thursday the 25th, there's a gentleman who is a professional diver for the US Navy. He's coming to give a presentation. It's at 2 p.m. So if anyone's
Excellent.
available.
Thank you, Mary.
Yep.
Marina Committee.
Marina had no meeting in August.
Marina Fest, drum roll, please, Scott. Ready to rock and roll.
We're ready to rock and roll. We met on Thursday, the 11th. Just kind of fine tune things. Had some requests from a vendor who wanted to cut his stay down to 2 days, and we stuck to our guns as far as the payment, so we'll make a decision there. And that looks to be pretty much it. Denise?
I just need to vent here for a moment, if that's okay, Mr.
Is it
Baker.
my fault?
No. No. I was one of the few people, probably the only person on the village board right now that was on the village board when Marina Fest began. And we were all so very excited about it. And it was also the determination that it was not going to become another annual event. And here we are, how many years later? What I really want to say is that I am so saddened that it almost seems like the fire department has been pushed out. and that they are no longer doing their brats and burgers and whatever else because everybody else has just been coming in. It used to be, they were in the beginning, the only people selling food at the time. It was their largest fundraiser. I know Chief Hex sits on that committee. He has been an awesome participant and looked at the whole of Marina Fest, not just how it affects the fire department. But I am personally really disappointed and saddened by this turn of events.
They haven't really been worked out so much, Denise, as they've asked to pull back.
The
They
staffing.
weren't making the money for the staffing, for their whole entire crew to be there for, you know, the 3 days and whatever. They weren't increasing, you know, their take.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Anything
That's
else,
all.
Scott?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Ad hoc Outdoor Rec and Transportation Plan Committee.
We had met since the last board meeting. I think we were looking for some stuff coming back from Dan. I think I owed Julie an email, reply email as well. I hadn't checked my email in a while. I saw that yesterday, Julie. We're working on expanding the plan.
Thank you.
Denise?
Page 102, I think there's a typo. I think we need a comma or something. I don't think on line 16, I don't think Brian Fitzgerald is our park supervisor.
We did that in the meeting. We just took liberty. He doesn't know it either.
Okay.
Okay, Parks, Properties and Streets Committee recommendations dealt with tonight. Personnel Committee recommendations dealt with tonight. Plan Commission.
Well, there's 2 sets of the exact minutes in there. So if there's a question in either one, I'm presuming they're the same. I did not read both of them.
They are.
Any questions?
Thank you, Denise. SBAA, Julie attended. I was at Fire Board. Believe we dealt with one of the issues this evening already. Julie, anything else?
No, they basically went through their budget and talked a little bit about, I just told them there were something, asked if we could talk about, Fall Fest and stuff, but we really didn't get into it, when we got later on the agenda. So there's nothing earth shattering or to report.
Thank you. Tourism Zone meets Thursday, and if you, Julie, we will be receiving probably on Wednesday the distribution of all the preliminaries for that meeting, and which you will, you're slotted as one of the people, as the administrator's always been slotted for Tourism Zone. So I will make sure that you get that stuff forwarded from me if you're not getting it already.
Yeah, she's been pretty good about adding me to the list. We're actually on the agenda this week to talk about that issue of our short-term rentals not being told that they need a license from us.
One thing I would just, as a point to just make you aware of, it may happen with you for whatever reason. Every time Tourism Zone sends out the preliminaries for their meetings, it shows up in the other category of email, not in the focused category for some reason. So just a heads up there, it might happen to you as well. Sewer and Water Utility Committee, there's notes there. We'll meet again next month. Youth Center has not met. I will motion that we approve the committee reports as submitted and discussed.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Do we have any matters to be placed on a future agenda or referred to a committee official or employee other than what's been previously noted this evening?
Oh, you know what? Am I allowed to go back to personnel?
You mean the Personnel Committee
Yeah.
report? So before we do that, then I will motion that what do we have to do then? A motion to disregard the previous approval, Julie?
No. It has nothing to do with the minutes or anything. It was just a question I had.
Oh, then I think we're okay. If it was to change the motion, we'd have to make a motion to go back.
Okay.
So,
All right, Denise?
So I think when we were talking about, well, at some point in time, Dan Klansky mentioned that, last week, a new parks guy was hired. And I forgot to ask, can he share any information with Rob and I and Don that are in personnel and the rest of the board? I didn't know we
That's a
hired.
good
any-
question. Dan, are
Yes.
you still with us?
Still with
There
you.
he
What can
is.
I share, Tasha, publicly? On
Um,
record.
So, how everything was left with personnel, we had been looking for someone earlier this summer. We were not actively recruiting in that we were not putting ads in the paper anymore, but we still had a position open and we left that position open and left it posted around the village. Someone who knew about the position applied for it. They were qualified, they were interviewed. His name is Mason. He's a young man, lives in the area and has been at work for almost a week. Or no, 2 days. Sorry, it's Tuesday, not Thursday.
Yep.
2 days.
I know a Mason. Can I say who the last name, or are you not purposely using a last name?
No, his name is Mason Hugelman.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that last name acceptable to you, Denise?
It's different than the Mason I know,
And they're not
It
a
worked out
cousin of
well.
yours.
and they are not a cousin of mine. No.
Okay.
The other one, yes, but not this one.
That's the other, Julie, that's one clarification we always have to get because 95% of the time anyone referenced is a cousin of Denise's. So.
I've heard that. I've noticed that.
All right, anything else for future matters? Hearing none, I will motion at 8:06 PM that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody.
Denise,
Yes.
Denise,